Chapter 126. Demise of the Wood Charm. Translator, Sky Pharaoh Editor, Sky Pharaoh. Admit defeat. Fang Yuan's words were still lingering in the crowd's ears. Instantly, almost all the Rank 2 Gu Masters below the rock building looked at Fang Yuan with surprise. Fang Yuan ignored them. He held his arms and stood on the spot with an indifferent expression. Admit defeat? He directly admitted defeat? Did I hear that wrongly? He is Fang Yuan? He doesn't even have the guts to come out. Ha ha. We recognize Xiongli's power. He is indeed strong. But even if you want to admit defeat, at least do that after the formalities. By directly admitting defeat, he is not only showing that he is a coward, he is even tarnishing the clan. The whispers were like ripples in a calm lake. The Gu Master's gazes turned from surprise to despise, scorn, and gloating. Many Gu Yue clan Gu Masters felt unease. The gazes from the Xiong and Bai clan's Gu Masters were like invisible needles, piercing their self-esteem. Fang Yuan was a member of the Gu Yue clan, with him directly admitting defeat. This made them feel absolutely humiliated. How could you admit defeat? Fang Yuan, you are a man of Gu Yue village. Stand up and fight bravely with Xiongli. Even if you lost, it wouldn't be anything serious. If you don't even have the guts to go out, then that would really be throwing away our dignity. Some Gu Yue clan Gu Masters shouted and urged Fang Yuan to take the challenge. Fang Yuan was indifferent. To him, these words were like dogs barking. The so-called name, face, and honor was only a pie painted on a paper, shackles used by the higher-ups to bind the organization members. These Gu Masters were also dogs on a leash. Xiongli gazed at Fang Yuan and suddenly laughed. I am truly disappointed. Is this how a Gu Yue village's bravery looks like? Gu Yue clan Gu Masters looked unsightly when they heard this. Hoots of laughter came from Xiong village's side, and even Bai village's Gu Masters looked at Gu Yue clan with mockery. The people around Fang Yuan started moving away. Everyone made some distance from him. Their faces were filled with embarrassment. Soon there was no one within 5 steps from Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan stood alone. My way or the highway, one. His expression was calm as opposed to the surroundings. Others fancied a courageous reputation, but Fang Yuan scoffed at it. This made others loathe him. Because Fang Yuan loathed fame, he was rejecting the society's values. Denying this system of values was rejecting the people who lived their lives following these values. Others naturally wouldn't deny their own values, otherwise they would feel that they were living in a wrong way. Thus they had subconsciously started to reject and boycott Fang Yuan. A weak-hearted person would be defeated by such rejection, and they would change themselves to suit the public. However, Fang Yuan needed such rejection. He had too many secrets on him, and so he needed to be solitary. At the same time, these people weren't worth being friends with. In his memories, Qingmao Mountain's 3 villages barely survived the wolf tide, but the accident 2 years later would totally destroy them and turn the entire Qingmao Mountain into a desolate area. What Fang Yuan needed was to use this time to improve himself as much as possible, then leave the clan and avoid the fatal disaster. Gu Yue Qingshu, the #1 Rank 2 Gu Master in the Gu Yue clan, couldn't help but stand up seeing this situation. Xiongli, how about sparring with me? Hey, what will we compete on? Xiongli was smiling, but his expression was serious. Gu Yue Qingshu didn't look at Xiongli. He slightly raised his palm and silently moved his primeval essence. His eye watchfully looked at the green vine that was slowly growing out from his palm. Reverend, he calmly said, let's compete on your strength. If you can break away from my green vine's binding, I will admit defeat. Is that okay? Haha, good suggestion. Let's do it that way. Xiongli grinned, his eyes revealing a bright light. He inwardly thought, I already have the strength of a bear, and combining it with the strength increase from Grand Bear Gu, I possess the strength of 2 bears. Although green vine is tough, I have absolute guarantee of breaking it away with the strength of 2 bears. Xiongjiang won against Bai Bingyi, and if I defeat Qingshu, it would give us great reputation. Qingshu gently smiled. Without speaking, he extended his 2 hands. 2 green vines grew out from his palms. Like 2 nimble green pythons, the 2 vines climbed up Xiongli and twisted around his body. Xiongli's hands were at his waist. The green vines coiled around both his arms and instantly made a dozen circles around them, tightly binding his hands with his back. The Gu masters on the scene couldn't take their eyes off this contest. "Please," Shu said to Xiongli. Xiongli opened his eyes. He tightly clenched his fists and started putting strength. Every muscle on his body seemed to stand out like lumps on a huge rock. Strength of a bear. Boom! The green vines started to snap under his enormous strength. "Ha ha ha, brother Shu. It seems the winner of this contest belongs to me." Xiongli was using his strength to break free, but he still had enough energy to make a conversation. "Senior Shu." Fang Zheng was nervous and his hands were sweating. The other Gu Yue clan's Gu masters were also the same. Gu Yue Shu was the #1 among them, and if he lost the contest, the Gu Yue clan would have thoroughly lost their face this time. "Not necessarily," Gu Yue Shu smiled, his eyes showing confidence. When he finished speaking, the green vines on his hands started changing. The originally green-like jade color suddenly changed to a dark green color. At the same time, the vines also became thicker, and green wide leaves started growing on it. Xiongli's face changed. He sensed the green vine's coiling strength had increased by more than 10 times. What made him more apprehensive was that those green vines which he had broken away from started growing and reconnected with the broken areas. "Is Granbergu." He sensed the situation going bad and immediately used the Granbergu in his aperture. Immediately, his hair started stiffening up like steel needles. The muscles on his whole body enlarged, and he seemed to have become much taller and bulkier. "Strength of 2 bears." The green vines gave creaking noises, but it was still able to resist this terrifying strength, firmly confining Xiongli. Xiongli's face became very red, and he brought out all his strength to break the green vines. But finally, he was only able to snap 1 green vine and couldn't continue anymore. "I lost." He released the supporting strength of Granbergu and said while gasping, "You let me win." Shu cupped his hands and retrieved the green vines. "Senior Shu, you are the best." Gu Yue clan's Gu masters were jubilant. Senior Shu really deserves his name. Big brother can't compare to him at all. Fang Zheng stood beside Shu and looked at the latter with reverence. Xiongli's gaze was complicated as he looked at Gu Yue Shu. He had progressed and obtained brown bear innate strength Gu, but Shu had also progressed, although he didn't know what the latter used. But this was his true rival. As for that Fang Yuan, he was only a newbie and was nothing to worry about. "It really is the wood charm Gu," Fang Yuan thought as he observed Shu from afar. Xiongli hadn't discovered anything when facing Gu Yue Shu. 2 emerald green leaves had grown on Gu Yue Shu's hair. This was the sign of using the wood charm Gu. The so-called wood charm was a tree spirit. Using the wood charm Gu could let one battle as a tree spirit. The tree spirit was an unusual creature. It could directly absorb the natural essence in the air and use it. Gu masters couldn't do this. They could only use the primeval essence in their aperture. When one used the wood charm Gu, they could become an embodiment of a wood charm tree spirit and would be able to directly absorb the natural essence in the air and replenish their primeval essence. It was the same as absorbing the primeval essence from primeval stones. When normal Gu masters battle, they are unable to divide their mind and absorb primeval essence from primeval stones while fighting. But as an embodiment of the tree spirit, the absorption of natural essence is an instinct and does not need one to divide their minds. This meant that the Gu masters who used wood charm Gu were experts in war of attrition. Although one couldn't say that they could use the natural essence endlessly, they could fight for as much as 3 times longer because of the continuous replenishment. And once one became an embodiment of the tree spirit, Gu worms like green vine Gu and pine needle Gu would also have their strength amplified. Fang Yuan instantly connected the dots. Wood charm Gu's fusion advancement can be said to be one of the most extravagant advancement routes. It is a rank 3 goo and needs to fuse with a 100 years lifespan goo to advance to a rank 400 years wood charm goo. The 100 years wood charm goo needs to fuse with a 1,000 years lifespan goo to advance into a rank 5,000 years wood charm goo. Everyone knows this fusion route, but goo masters rarely use this recipe. The reason is due to the preciousness of the lifespan goo. When the goo masters finds lifespan goo, they will usually use it directly to increase their own lifespan. In this world, a human could live for at most 100 years if they didn't encounter any accidents or illnesses. 100 years was the lifespan limit of the humans. But a lifespan goo can increase lifespan. 100 years, lifespan goo can increase the lifespan of a person by 100 years in 1,000 years. Lifespan goo could increase it by 1,000. Lifespan goo were extremely rare and everyone sought after them. Fang Yan had lived for 500 years in his previous life because he used 500-year lifespan goo in his previous life. Thus adding 500 years to his lifespan, his 100 years lifespan had turned to 600 years. But in the end, halfway through, he was attacked by the righteous factions and had no choice but to self-detonate and die. Lifespan goo represented a long life and could let people live for long, but it didn't mean undying. The wood charm goo is powerful, but has its weakness. Goo masters can't use it for a long period. If they use it for too long, the wood charm goo's strength will affect their body and will transform their body to that of wood, finally changing the body into a wooden corpse. In my previous life, Gu Yue Qing Shu had died in this way. Thinking of this, Fang Yuan's eyes flashed. Ordinarily, powerful goo worms had huge side effects and needed to be used with other goo worms. Otherwise, there would be harmful influences on the goo master's body. Xiongjiang's roaming zombie. Goo was best used with the bloodline goo. If not, the blood in his body would decrease when used for too long, and he would change into a true zombie. The Xiongli group returned to their camp. They first won against Bai Bingyi, then met defeat against Qing Shu. Even so, the group still received a lot of applause and praises. Mo Yan, I challenge you. Come, Xiongjiaman, I will fight you. After the Xiongli group, the whole scene suddenly became noisy. Many goo masters continuously came out and challenged the powerful opponents in their minds, demonstrating their bravery. The alliance slope turned chaotic, and all kinds of brilliant and varied goo battles were occurring. The true goo battle had started.